Hi and welcome back to MDriven. Today we're gonna do something that looks like an LinkedIn clone. So let's look at how this pans out. We can do posts that and the menu stays on top, and then you can go into the profile and edit images and name and some attributes. And it's responsive like this, so when you go really big the search box shows. And what's more to say about this? Well, it won't be the complete LinkedIn, of course. It will be parts of it, interesting parts. And the main things we can learn from a sample like this. How to work with MDriven Designer and Turkey Prototyper, how to enable registration of users to our LinkedIn clone, extend an information model to hold the needed information. This is always important. Transform information to screens, partly using autoforms logic to minimize the manual work. And with manual choose and pick to display on a grid layout, or the more advanced stuff with the responsive placing containers to get exactly what we want. And we will see how to set up rule-based automation to move when criteria are fulfilled, or set up actions for user to navigate between screens. And of course, this whole example is to follow a design idea, which is the original LinkedIn, to create a UI that follows and behaves as requested. We're going to see select sets of objects based on criteria to have what posts to show. And we're going to clean up our work to get a good overview for maintenance in an information model. So let's get cracking. Starting from scratch, we simply Googled for MDriven and find the page and go to MDriven Designer and run that. We click once and we start it. We might need some plugin to our browser if we don't have one. Once we are going, we're gonna clean up and start a new empty file, having nothing. What we want to do with the LinkedIn clone is, of course, to have user authentication, so user registration. So we're gonna find that on the wiki, which is easily found by clicking that link and looking for small examples, or rather this one, model examples. We're going to find the example, which is this one, sys user authentication, important architectural patterns. So we simply download that one and head back to MDriven Designer. And yeah, we don't need to open it. We're gonna open and merge. So we find that in our downloads, this user authentication, and that merges in this section in our otherwise empty model. So now we have a sys user with a username. Sys singleton is one important object in this model. The singleton pattern that you easily state that you want to use by turning on this feature in the property inspector. The singleton pattern is that there's only one object. So we know that there's a global one sys singleton object. And that object in our model here has a current user. So that will be the logged in user. So we will always know that we have the sys singleton current user will point to the logged in user. So that's fine. And so to know what to add to the information model, we need the requirements, and the requirements in our case will be the official LinkedIn. So we're going to log into LinkedIn and see how that looks. And let's go on my profile to see what kind of information there is. There's a first name, there's a last name, additional name, etc. So what we do is to add these things that we want to the sysuser class so that we also have them. And there's a pronoun that sort of says what to call the person. So we're gonna add that as well. We're gonna add that as a separate class to link to it. So we have a value store pattern. So each sysuser can have exactly one pronoun, or 0 to 1 pronoun. And but the pronouns can be used by multiple sysusers, of course. And what will be we'll put an attribute in pronoun so that we have a description on that. And there's some other things like the headline and the position. We'll do an object of that as well to point out the current position as 1, and possibly also have the multiple positions in a separate association, which we call positions, all positions. And location, postal code, additional name. Okay, we want to immediately start using this new possibilities and information on screens. So what we do in MDriven is that we create a new view model. I'm going to call this one for edit intro, and to facilitate to tell the system what information to actually use, we say what class this should be rooted in. And we say that this also requires a root. What that means is that there's going to be an actual object backing this, and it's going to be of type sysuser, so that's fine. In order to make it show, we can do a class action to have it shown for us. And let's see, the easiest way to get stuff poured in the UI is to use this UI first strategy, and we're going to just do copy auto form logic. And what it does is simply pull all the available things, both attributes and associations, and pour them into the view model for us. And then I sort of turn the work around. Now I need to delete stuff that I don't want. So I'm going to do that real quick and move things to get more what I want, like that. So we have a view. Let's start the prototyper to see how this view actually will look. We press play and we go to local turnkey prototyper. Maybe we need to check MDriven turnkey core if we have it downloaded already or not. If we already have, we just do start. And as we do start, we see that the core server pops up and we can navigate to it in the browser. And as the browser shows our application, we are presented with the option to register a new user. I'm going to go for a user called AA and do a simple password because I'm going to use it a lot. So to reduce my headache, I'm going to have a really simple password on that to make it log in fast. And we immediately see that we have forgotten to actually navigate to the view that we made. So we're going to head back to the model to see what we can do about that. This view, this window can actually, even if it's model, can be closed now because we have started everything and things will continue to run in the background for us. So what we want to do is to have the application to navigate to our edit intro page once a user logs in. That's the initial task for us today. So But let's go to the index page, because the index page is where the application normally out of the box goes when a user logs in. But we can react to that fact and do something else. We do that by adding an action that will take us to the page where we actually want to go. Jump to edit intro is the name of the action, and the view model that we're gonna jump to is stated as we pick it as one of the available, and that's called edit intro. Then we need a root object, what object to actually show in the edit intro view model. So I'm going into the OCL editor and remember what I said before, the sys singleton, and then there's an operator called OCL singleton, and we follow the link to current user. This will be the logged in user. Great. Now we can try again to go to the application and find that we have we have the action, but we haven't hooked it up correctly. Let's do a new button here and connect that to the action of jump to edit. And we're going to set an interval on that action. What that means is that the action is periodic, that will run every 1th interval, which is less than a second. It's really fast. So that's not good, because we can't have something loop all over the place to consume CPU for the user or for the server. So we're going to add a disable expression that sort of similar to this we wrote before, the singleton and the current user. And if the current user is empty, then this action should be disabled. And I'm just gonna try this out. I'm logging out and I'm logging in again, and as you see behind this screen that the application navigated to the correct page. Good, we're done. Now we want to fill in some information here, and I immediately see when running the application that create time shouldn't be there, so I'm gonna do some cleanup of this view in design time, and real quick and saving, heading back to here. Now the data looks better, or the screen looks better, and the pronoun. All right, let's think about the pronoun. So the pronoun will need a new view model to actually maintain the values of it. Of course, we could hack things straight into the database like in the old days, but why not do it properly and do a managed UI for this? Manage pronouns, and we're gonna use the UI first variant, copy value store pattern auto form, and that sort of brings in all the instances of the pronouns and lists them and have created actions, etc., for us to create or delete them. So again, here I need to clean out the stuff that I actually don't want, and once I've done that, I can see that there's a action added for me, added manage pronouns, which brings up this view model that we just or this view that we just did, design with the view model. And we can see that we have actions. If we make the screen a bit bigger, and I can create the values that should go in here, and I see what they should be, and I just fill them in real quick like this. So now I'm ready to fill in the information. I can set between the available values for the pronoun, and I have some other information that I want to fill in, the names, etc., etc. And comparing to what we have, I can see that we're pretty much fine. Now I see I have a warning up here, and I'm gonna take care of that. What it says is that if the view model requires a root object, you should not have it empty in the action that brings it up, manage pronouns. We just click the warning and we get to the action, and we see that indeed we have it empty. But it should be empty because this doesn't really require a root object. So we head back to the view and we uncheck this box, requires roots. Back again to the screen to watch it and see the current held position. We're gonna add, and this is also one of the things we got from the auto forms, a way to add all positions. So we're just gonna use that for now and create a position and have that one to actually set a position here. Now I feel ready to start with the main page for the LinkedIn clone here. So main page for user, I'm gonna root it in the same type of class as user, and I'm gonna add a few things to start with. What we want to see is the last name, first name, headline, and I'm gonna change those to static because we don't want them to be editable at this point. The edit is done in the other screen that we watched before. So I'm gonna add a button here for actually going into the edit page if we want to. So edit is the name of the action, and we're gonna do the edit intro, that we jump to that one. And the root object for this one is, since this was a view model action, we need to pinpoint exactly where the root comes from in the view, and it's the vCurrent main, vCurrent main page for user that we're gonna use. So once we have done that, we might also want to change the automatic navigation that we added to the index page to navigate to this page instead. So I'm gonna head back to the index page and rename this button and change it to go to another page instead. And let's see what happens if we log out and log in, and we end up in the correct place. So now our login jumps to the main page of the user, and the main page of the user is really simplified for now. The edit box, oh, I forgot to actually hook it up to the action that we called show edit intro. And once here, we can also say that it's gonna use, that it's gonna be modal, so that this new window, edit intro, is gonna show up as a modal window and not actually switch the view we're on. So let's head back to see how that looks once we're done. So if we press the edit, we get this view, which is good. Let's check how it should look. So we see that in the real LinkedIn there's an image, and we don't have one. So and this is a common case that we discover after the fact, that we need more information. So we're going to add an attribute to the sys user and going to call that picture, and we're going to do it of type blob. And once we have it of type blob, we're going to set the blob type to be an image, because that will help us on what to display. So we could of course add it here, but what we really want to do is to manage it in the edit view. So I'm going to head to the edit view again, and then I'm going to add the rendering of this new attribute. And let's see how that behaves. Once we go into edit, we can choose a picture and upload that to the database, and that's fine. So since this is the main page for the user, we're going to give it some more love, and then it's better to use the placing containers, because that gives us full control of where things go. And the placing containers are, once we start using them, every widget that we put on the screen must be within one of these placing containers. Currently there's not much difference, but one of the things that we see is that we might want to hide the menu bar and the sidebar of the application. So we're checking those, hide menu bar, hide sidebar that we see up here, and then the those are hidden from the user view. And what we gonna do is to actually, now that we think about it, we want a better sort of menu that we probably want to reuse. So I'm gonna just do a simple column here pointing to self. Self will be the root object of this view, a type of sysuser, the logged in user, because that's the one that we put there. So and once we point a view model column to a object, we may use this widget over here to put which view model that we should bring into this one. And that's a good thing for the menu that we're going to do. So we don't have one, but let's go ahead and fix the menu straight off. LinkedIn menu, and that's going to be placing containers as well. And now we can bring that LinkedIn menu in the main view. But we still need to define this new LinkedIn menu view. So I'm going to do that with placing containers as well. And just see what do we need here to mimic the original LinkedIn. We're going to harvest some graphics. I'm going to grab that logo there and just paste it in here and give it a name. And then I'm going to remove the presentation of it because we don't want this extra label on top of the image. In this case, we just want the image. So going, and now we see that we have that in place there, so that's good. Let's continue to do the rest of the icons real quick. Well, a search box, it's not an icon, it's a search box that we're gonna need to catch some information for. Let's do that a variable called vSearchString, and if something is missing that we write here, but we start with the letter V, we get the option to create a new variable straight in the editor. So that's good. We take that opportunity and create it as a string. Now we have that, and I'm gonna design the width for it, and we see that we have a search box in the menu as well. We have these icons, clean them up and move them into Paint and copy and paste them one by one to get them into the view model. This is a bit tedious, but someone has to do it, might as well be me. And we're pretty much where we wanted with this, that it's responsive and behaves and shows the icons in the menu. Good. So one of the things that's missing from our menu is the image that's gonna be there as well, the small thumbprint image. Just gonna add a icon to the search box here, that image there. So let's go ahead and add a field for that, saying that it should be, oh, now it was editable. We don't want that, so we're gonna switch it to being static in a minute. We're just gonna set a style on it to round its borders. So let's see if we can get this going. Yes, now we have two borders around it because it's editable. So let's head back to, so we uncheck the, or rather check the is static on this column to make the image appear as a static image with a fixed size. As we look at the original, we see that we also have an image here that's centered slightly above a background. So we're going to do that as well. Let's add a spot for it, a new placing container to make this center, and we add the picture view model column, and yeah, we're there almost. It's much too big in the wrong place and not rounded, so there's a lots of stuff wrong with it. But we start with a new style to make it round the edges, and yeah, remember we had the same issue but with it being not being static, so if you're going to fix that as well. And as soon as we do that, we get the size all wrong, so we're gonna do stuff with the sizes, and now we get the rounded corners but much too small. And now we see that this is completely round, but our picture, yeah, let's see what size it actually has. So we're gonna do the exact same size, and 68, half of that is 34 for the rounded corners, but it's still oval. So and that's probably because we have the wrong image aspect when we upload it. So I'm gonna do that more squared and re-upload the image to pick the new one like that. But look at this, as soon as we try to leave this window, it says, are you sure you want to cancel changes? So we don't want to cancel changes, we want this to be saved. So we have discovered the need to save. So what we're going to do about that, let's head back to the action that brings this dialog up and see that it has an expression after modal OK. So what should happen after we press the OK button in a modal dialog for this action? Well, we should call save on this view model, self-vm.save. And now if we change the picture again and can save changes, and we ask and we say yes. So now we have the image and it's rounded. So what strikes us now is that we're missing the background image. So no problem, we just gonna head back to the view, adding a new view model column for this in a new placing container to get a new thing. We call that background image. We're gonna say self, which is a sys user, background image, and this doesn't exist, so it warns us down here and suggests that we maybe want to add a new attribute, background image. We're gonna continue and hit that link to get up this UI, and we get the option to background image should be of type blob. So we're almost done, but we need to express that this background image new attribute should be of the no, not that one. The blob type should be of image. So once we have done that, we have done everything needed to store this value in the database. Let's see where you edit that one. Let's add the edit of this background image on the edit intro view model. So just adding in a view model column for that, and we have that, and we can pick one. So now we have the background image showing up in our main page for user, which is good. Let's make it go in the background behind this one. So the first thing we'll do is say that it's not going to be editable, and then we move them around and we make them the right size and check the sizes here, and then we sort of make things happen like that. And once we got our background where we want it, make it a little bit bigger. We can see that the original one has a white frame, but we have a black frame. So we're gonna head back to our style and say that the stroke color of this should be white. We define and pick that one, and now we have it white. So now they are really resembling each other. So while I was here, I saw that the search box actually folds into a single icon at some points. So let's see where that happens. We have a search box, but LinkedIn Original has a icon. So that's actually something that we need to react to when the screen size changes. So there's a section here in the wiki, vClient screen width. So that will be updated with the actual screen width. So we can make decision on screen width on the high level logic that we have in the application. So we're going to make use of that. But first I need another search icon to show when the search box should be hidden. So adding that, but this one should only show when client screen width is, let's say, above 300. And that doesn't exist, so I'm gonna add that variable as an integer, add a new column, and search when small. Just gonna grab that icon, paste it in to get it going, removing the presentation, and let's see. When now it's a search icon, and now it's a search box. So now it's responsive in that way that we want it. But the LinkedIn one starts at another value, seems like 800. So maybe we should change ours to being 800 instead. So next thing we need to fix are these texts. They are should be centered at least, and we should do other things with them. So let's go ahead and just address the placing container to set the properties on the parent placing container to make them centered. And then here's an interesting fact. Let's see. Yeah, we have them centered now. Good. But here is the full name Hans Karlsson on one row. So what about that? Mine is first name and last name. So that's probably something we want to fix with a compound presentation. So let's call this name only. And then we do some transformation here. The first name, and we add a space to have a separator, and then we take the last name. So having done that and removing the presentation header, we get the full name like that. So that's good. And now we want to remove the presentation on the headline, and so Hans Karlsson, the man. Now we want to style the text as well, so we're gonna go ahead in and create a new text. We call it bold text, and we add a font. Yeah, we're gonna add a text and also a weak text for this one under, so just add a new style, having that in a slightly different way to get that going, and something like that, I guess, would be better. Yeah, turning our attention into this area here, start a post. So let's go ahead and do some stuff to add that to our view model, doing some placing containers and some actions and moving things around to get it to stretch the way we want and take up the correct amount of space. All right, now I have it like that, so that's the wrong image, that's the background. I should have the face. And let's continue a bit to work with this. Okay, now I have the face, but it's too big, so I'm gonna do it a bit more like this. Now I have the face, but it's out of alignment. And now that I think of it, when I look at the edit button, it's not actually the edit button that we want. Because edit brings up this, and in the original edit is brought up by this. So we need to make a text into a button. So let's do that. Making a text into a button is really easy. We just need to decide where to put the action. So it's on this widget, which is the name. And we go to that and say renders action, edit. So when we do that, the edit button, you see the edit button down here sort of disappears, because now once we say that it should be rendered by this other widget called name, then it has no, then we remove it because it's rendered by someone else. So, and this one turns like a link. And let's head back to the application, and now when we click the name, it brings up the model dialog for us where we can change the properties of the user. Turning our attention back to the create new post, we want to make that button, we add a new button for that then, and start new post. What should happen? Now it brings up the edit, which is not correct. Instead, we should be able to see which audience this post should be, and we should get a create post dialog with a place to write the new post. And so let's go ahead and do a new view model called create new post. Make that rooted in sysuser as well, because it's practical to have access to ourselves. And doing so, placing containers to get this going. Let's bring in the menu just for good measures, and create new post and action that actually brings it up. We're gonna have it when we press that one, yeah, we're on, but we didn't get the image because we never actually set the root object in it, the action. Now we get the image, good, and we create new post. Should be as a header for this dialog, and I'm gonna style that header, so we're almost there. But again, I get a little bit sidetracked because this button looks like this and our button looks like this, so it's totally different. We need to do something about that. So actually you can pretty easily go into the browser debugger to see the styles, etc., to figure out what you should do in order to make it look another way. And doing so, I can see that we need to do some changes, and those changes need to go somewhere, because they may not be supported. There will always be cases where we haven't thought of everything. So for that reason, you can add a file, tk user css with your own styles, and then you can reference those styles. And a lot back and forth to get the style just right, but in the end it will look like this. And comparing that with the original, I can see that it's still wrong, because we are centered and with the capitals. So hunting in the HTML a bit more, finding out what to do the different changes, and pretty soon we will be at something that looks like this, which is better. So being happy with the button, and it sort of highlights when I move the mouse over it and things like that. I'm back to my create a post dialog, and comparing with the original, I can see that the audience thing is need to be done, etc. So let's head back to the model and make place for this. LinkedIn post, it's gonna have a text, and we're gonna do that of type text, which allows for any amount of text. A string will have a limited size in the database, but text covers everything. So, and we're gonna add an image attribute, and the same with that one. It's a blob, and it has the blob type as image. I'm gonna name the associations to better describe what it is that we see. So, and I'm gonna have another association for the current LinkedIn post, the post on the creation, so to say. And having done that, we also need the audience. So I'm gonna add a class for that. It's a sort of a value store. So we will need yet another view to manage those. Gonna do that the same way as I did the other one. Copy the auto form logic and clean it up and head back to the application to see that we got an action, and actually create some values and copy the values from the original to so that I can use them like this. Cleaning up the naming to get away with the class name in front of it. No problem like that. So heading back here, there should be a picker in my form. So heading to the create new post form and wanted to add a picker. We're gonna do a single link, actually a single link with setter. So that one is not quite correct, but it's a single link with setter who should see this post. So this is one good reason to name your associations well, because now we get the hints while creating, so we know what is it that we're going to use. Well, who should see this post? And it will be a type of audience. So we see that, and we simply add that one and move it into the placing container and try it out. And now we immediately can see that it works. We can choose the audience for this new post. Good. So what we probably want to do is actually make sure to set the post on the creation to a, well, we're going to do an automated action again to do something if that is empty. The post on the creation is empty, then we're going to assign. So this is the assign operator of OCL that we have in MDriven, and we're going to do a LinkedIn post create. So that's the way you create new objects, nothing to it. And once you have done that, we probably want to add the object that we created to the list of all posts for this user as well. So we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna save it all. So, and let's see, maybe I turn that around. So moving ahead, we want to add a text to actually put in the post text. So I'm gonna add one, and we have the post text there. What we want for the post text is actually that this information about what it is should go inside. So we call that a placeholder. I'm gonna look that up in the wiki, how that is constructed. Placeholder, I'm gonna find it, the placeholder for input control, that's the one, and it says that you need a view model column named the same but ending in underscore placeholder. So adding a new one, calling text placeholder, and then we can put in an expression or simply the text that what we want to say. And now we see that show up, but in this case also the placeholder column that actually goes into here shows. So we're gonna make that not visible, and what you want to talk about was the original text. Make that not visible. So this one that actually goes only acts as a placeholder text for this one shouldn't show on its own. And heading back here, create new post. Still something strange because I don't get a place to write. And now it seems okay. Yeah. Fine. Now our next dilemma is that we don't see the post that we have made anywhere. So I'm just quickly gonna add a section to actually display the post that exists. So we see that everything is good and that we can create new posts. And adding placing containers to display these things out, the image from and the text and like this. And now I discovered that this is actually the wrong place to show the posts. We don't want to show them in the create new post dialog. So I'm going to move that into the other dialog that we called main page for user. So pressing this button, I can bring up how many view model editors I want to see two view models at the same time. And gonna add a spot for them, and here I can just copy and paste the whole nesting of one view model to another to make that happen. I'm gonna remove those from here. And we need to actually save the things as we leave the first one, because otherwise they will be reverted and removed from memory. So now, now I discovered the need to actually create a new post when one is done. So let's do that. Once we leave the view for the post that we did, we should probably null out this post on the creation. If we do that, next time we go into the view, the automated action will find this fact and create a new post for us. Having come this far, I can see that the scrolling is not what we want, because now we scroll away the menu. And in the original, the menu stays, but everything else scrolls like this. So what we're gonna do about that? Well, there's a box that is over here that allows you to set can scroll. So that decides what placing container has a scroll bar if needed. And currently we don't have had that set. So just setting one on one level to see how that behaves. And now I can see that, all right, we got the scroll bar, but only on the posts and not on this section, and we should really have that. So I need to go back and restructure a few of my placing containers, just moving them about, putting one in the other, etc. to make this happen, and putting the can scroll value on the correct one. Let's see if we can get that to work here. So now I have that the correct section is scrolling like this. So good. So I'll try to do some more, and this scrolls as I want it to scroll. Good. So now I also want to add a possibility to add an image to the post. I know I have the image control, but in the view, but not in the create new post dialog. So heading over here again and simply adding that column and making that testing that. So now I can add an image and the image shows up, but let's see if the image is in the original scale differently than mine. So I'm gonna do some settings on the columns to say that we want them to behave as static images. But now we get an interesting effect that the post that doesn't actually have a image are shown like this, like a broken image symbol, and that we don't want that. We want to hide the image if the image is not set. So let's see how we go about that. There's actually a way for controlling the visibility in lists, and that you create a new attribute or a view model column called image, or the same name as the view model column you want to hide, underscore visible. So let's see, I spelled it wrong here, so that's why we can't see it. Heading back, spelling that correctly. Now they scale and write important stuff, put an image. Yes, so now they work as we want them to, and I can add posts with images, and they scale when I make the screen bigger. Great. But of course you don't want to see your own post primarily, you want to see other people's posts. So how would we go about that? I'm going to add a new association from the sys user to LinkedIn post, but I'm going to do this derived. As I do it derived, I have the possibility to add an expression on the association ends. And the association end for this LinkedIn post to show for user, I want to do all posts for this user. No, that's not what we want to do. We want to show other people's posts. So the naive way were to show everything, LinkedIn post all instances, but LinkedIn probably has tens or hundreds of millions of posts, so that won't do. So that's not what we want. We want to do a search, a search in the database to get just the post that we want. And this is probably a complex algorithm of LinkedIn that we are not, that we don't fully understand or have the possibility to have the information to extract as of yet. That's not an issue with MDriven. It's just our knowledge about the system that lacks. But what we can do is to add a search in the database, and we can look it up in the wiki. We call it PS eval. So that makes it very possible to actually create OCL expressions that are translated into SQL and efficiently fetched back to our system. So we're going to do a PS eval, and we're going to fetch all or ask for all the instances, but restrict the posts to posts that has sys user separated from self. So that way, that's the most simple way that I can think of to find other people's posts. And we're gonna pick 20 of them and refresh when this attribute is updated. Right. So we now have the possibility in the model to show other people's posts to get to them. So we're going to add that to the UI as well, just doing more of the same. adding a placing container to keep the other people's posts in, copying most of the values from the other LinkedIn post, but this is rooted in the this association instead of this association. So the one that we did LinkedIn post for you to show for user, and so here goes other people's posts. I'm just gonna write that text in, not necessarily that it's gonna be there forever, but just to show the different sections. So this is other people's posts and these are my own posts. Fine. How to test this? Well, I guess I need to bring up another browser to get a new session and create a new user. And that user, let's see. Since it has a broken image, there's no way to write the name, etc. We're going to fix that in a minute, but we're going to let this new user create a new post to see that this stuff works. So did a post with that image and we didn't see anything. Well, that's because we only refresh when that attribute that we sent into the PS eval gets a new value. So we're going to add a button to make that happen shortly. But first we're going to fix the ability to actually change the name or get into the user dialog, user settings dialog, user properties dialog, even if it doesn't have a name. So there's no link to click. Our expression for that was this self first name and a space and last name, but we want to fix that. We're going to assign this to a temporary variable name to show and use name to show and check if name to show is null or empty, and in that case it should write this text instead. Please enter your full name. So let's see what happens. Turns out that this space tricks me. The string will never be totally empty because there will always be a space in it. So let's do a trim here. Please enter your full name. So I can call myself Other Hans and do yet another post. And now we're back to do the refresh button, and let's just add a column with an action column, calling it refresh, and there we just set the refresh, the shown posts to datetime now. That will always be fresh, and that will invalidate the derivation link that is this one linked in post to show for users for this user, and then we will get a new result. So whenever I press the refresh, let's see, so post from others, refresh. Let's do some so let's do the B user is gonna do a new post. Anyone, this is a new post, and I'm gonna add an image to it, and I'm gonna hit refresh, and alright, this is a new post. There it is. Good, that works. But another issue that pops up is that the posts aren't really sorted. So heading back to this one that we show, or maybe even into the derivation, we're going to return the order by expression on this one to change time. Actually, we're going to do order descending to get them the newest first. Once we have done that, we are ready to go to see how new posts look. I'm going to do yet another post, picking another image, pressing OK, and I can see that it's at the bottom of my own posts. but when I go to the A user, I press refresh, it pops up at the top of the A users list. So that's just what we were looking for. So we want to show the name of the other poster next to the post. So instead of doing all this logic again to add the first name and the last name, maybe we could just do a presentation name. There's nothing like that currently, but we can just add it, and then we can say it's derived. And if we have said that it's derived, we can edit the derivation, and we make that the self name and self first name and last name. So this way we have added something in the model rather than in the UI. So if we have the need for something multiple times, it's much better to have it in the model instead of in a single UI. So let's use that. So now the whose post is this, other Hans, other. So that's good. That's what we wanted. And if I look at this, whose post is this, Hans Karlsson. But the position, yeah. Yes, what about the position? So we have, we can see easily by right-clicking where this association end is used. And we can see that there's no real good way to set it. We have just this create all positions, but maybe there should be a new UI for manage positions, because those are probably terms that we're going to reuse for all users so that they are comparable. So manage positions, just adding a new view model. And as we can see now, we have collected 3 different management UIs in the top menu, but we really want to consolidate them into a sub-menu. We do that by creating a menu group, calling it something like admin stuff, and putting all of these 3 items into that menu group. And now we got a sub-menu. So manage positions, gonna add the names for these 3 that we created before, and we're gonna use that. Let's clean up this edit intro view to remove all the things that we don't want. And now there's a thing called multi-link with create and delete. So this is just a quickie. Oh, actually a multi-link with picker, add and remove is the one that we want to use. You can do all this manually, but these things are nifty because they have foreseen some of the reoccurring patterns that we use to get a UI, some UI functionality going. And we just pick one of that one for positions, and we get this selector and an add and remove action and a grid to show what's currently picked. So this is great if you have something where the user is supposed to pick of a subset, and but they can pick many, and we can show how many they have picked down here, and the subset will reduce as they can only pick one item once, the same item once. So if we look at the remove, there's an expression. If we look at the list of the pick list, it has position all instances, with a difference to self all positions. So that will be that all positions minus the positions that I already have, reducing the set that you can choose from in the picker. So it's really practical. Let's see how that works. We're back into the application and I choose president and I remove, let's see, gonna make this bigger so that we can see better, and I'm gonna save afterwards. So now I'm position president, king and hero, and if I select here, if I select working class hero, I can remove that one and then they will pop up in the picker again and I can handle that this way. Good. So now that we have that, we could append the position to the presentation name, but maybe we should instead move all this definition into the getting all the positions, because there can be multiple, getting the header of the position objects and calling the operator as comma list. And as comma list just appends strings and puts comma in between, and that's probably what we want in this case. So let's see. Now I can see I'm Hans Carlsen, working class hero and king. That's good. And I'm gonna do for user B, so other user is president. So this is pretty much what I wanted to show you in mimicking the logic of LinkedIn. But before I leave you, I'm gonna show that it's really good to document the stuff that you have, and you can easily do that by creating a new diagram, and that's empty from start. We call it LinkedIn so far, and then we can simply drag on the important stuff that we have in the model on this diagram. And when it comes to attributes that are in classes, we can pick and choose which one to actually visualize on this diagram to save space. So I can remove the unnecessary stuff to make it more to the point. Make use of colors to signal different things and what they mean to you, and straighten things up and bring in the UI views for easy navigation to them, to find them when you want to edit them, and also to see how the complete solution looks. So as you have seen, there are always thousands of stuff popping up while you develop, and this is no different from no matter what kind of process you have. The important thing is that you're able to change and react to stuff, and that you have a stable solution that immediately responds and shows the changes that you have, so that you don't sit too long with errors. So this is a showcase of MDriven. We're going to do some more. If you have suggestions what we're going to do to help you get going with MDriven, please let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching.